All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 10th community call for OBANZ, and we've got another really nice case study lined up for you from New Zealand today, which is awesome, and not an educational one. Actually, not an educational institution one. So that's exciting too, because people have been saying in the previous community calls, you know, it'd be nice to have a non-academic example, and we're really glad today that we've got Maurice Moore with us to share his experiences and his case study. So just a little bit about how we run these broadcasts. If this is your first time here, we have a we try to closely mirror how the community calls in the United States work with Badge Alliance and with Mozilla, and that means that we like to use a collaborative note-taking tool called Etherpad, and I will just screen share so I can show you all what that looks like, just in case you haven't found us there yet. So you can find it at obanz.etherpad.mozilla.org, but there is a I've added the link there, and basically we've got the chat here on the right hand side, and you notice that if you add your name to the top, then you can just add your name and you get assigned a color so everyone knows who's talking. And then it always contains all of the links and any other kind of notes that we take throughout the session. As you can see, we've got a Twitter page which you can follow us on. It's OB_ANZ, OBANZ. You can find us on Google+, and you can find us on Facebook. And like I said last time, we have got an obanz.org domain name now, and we're looking to transfer or to include all of the previous. We're looking to include all of the previous resources from all of the previous recordings into that blog, so that we've got one hub on the web where we can be found. So the other thing that we would like everyone to do is just to add to the roll call. So you'll see from line 31 that we've got a roll call, and just add your name, Twitter handle, email address, as much as you're comfortable. Remember, this is an open page, so you don't want to add anything that you wouldn't want anyone to see. And we always appreciate a link back to your blog so that we know what you're working on as well. In terms of an agenda, pretty easy. The reasons we started OBANZ, basically because the community calls in the United States are at a crazy time for us in Australia and New Zealand, and a way to kind of get more knowledge sharing happening between OBI users, Open Badge infrastructure users, in Australia and New Zealand, and learn from each other. And if you've got any other ideas about how we can be working together, then we'd love to hear from you. We meet every first and third Wednesday of the month, so you're welcome to join us then. We always do it at 7 p.m. Melbourne time, which is 9 p.m. in New Zealand, and which is 4 p.m. in Perth. So we kind of try to spread it so that everyone can be part of it. Okay, so then just a little bit about who you'll be seeing on the panel. And by the way, just at the top of the chat, you'll see that I've included a link for panelists to join. If you want to be in the Hangout so that you can contribute or so that you can ask questions, then we'd love to have you. Just follow that link, and it will take you in through a slightly different door so that you can actually show up in the Hangout. So we're welcome. We're very open to people coming in and participating in the Hangout. And so just a little bit about everyone who's in the room at the moment, and I'll just stop screen sharing and turn my camera back on. There we go. I'm Joyce Seitzinger. You know me as @CatsPajamasNZ on Twitter, and I am an education technology consultant and learning designer, and currently founder of a company called @Academic Tribe. So the other people that we've got in the room here with us is my co-facilitator for the OBANZ community, Bron Stuckey. Bron, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm @BronST, B-R-O-N-S-T, and I'm also an educational consultant, but focusing in communities of practice and gamification, which is what brings me to love open badges, and want to hear about every case that that I can. I'll be taking the notes mostly tonight, so I probably may not be talking too much because I've got a bit of a migraine. But I'll be in the notes, and if you want to jump over and help take notes, and please don't forget to drop your questions there, then we can really make this a conversation.
Yes, so the OBANZ, on the one hand, you've got the chat, but the other side is the note-taking, and we totally encourage collective note-taking by everyone, and drop in links to other case studies or other information that you might have. All right, the in the room is Mark Smithers. Mark, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name's Mark Smithers, and I'm an educational technologist. I work with Choice at Academic Tribe. And I'm currently trapped in an attic room at 40 degrees Celsius. So if it goes quiet, then somebody can send some water up. That would be really good. Yeah.
Thank you. And then finally, we have our speaker for tonight. So Maurice, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, and then feel free to just launch into your slide deck, and I understand we're also going to get a live demonstration of your system, which will be awesome. And I just noticed some people popping in late. So if you're in here late, remember that at the top of the chat in Etherpad, we've included a link if you just want to come into this Hangout and want to participate in the discussion here live. Otherwise, if you just happy to participate in the chat, that's fine too, and Bron will relay the questions into here. So with that, over to you, Maurice. Oops, I'm not hearing you, so I'm just going to make sure that you're not muted. Maurice? All right, so we've just got some technical difficulties there. Let me just see how I can get you. We did check earlier, and it was all working just fine, so if you'll all just bear with us.
While we're waiting, Joyce, we might tell people about the summit that we were at last week, and that we will be passing on the links to all the fantastic presentations that were recorded by Deacon. So maybe we can, while Maurice sorts it out, tell them a little bit about that.
Just saying, Maurice, if you want to, maybe you can you could leave and come back in again, or just whatever you need to do. That's fine. We'll just talk to people about the OLT Badge Forum that we went to last week. Which was awesome. It was like a veritable who's who of badging in basically in the world. So Deacon was running a this was kind of like not quite a results presentation, but they're coming up to, I think, the midway or perhaps 2/3 through their OLT project, and they got together a full day of all of these amazing researchers who've been doing projects with badges. And there was Dan Hickey from Haystack, or who's been running the Haystack project, and from the States. And you know more about Dan than I do, Bron. And We had Nan
Dan's a researcher in motivation, feedback, assessment. And so, he really comes from a deep cognitivist point of view about badges. And he's the one who's kind of been answering the Alfie Kohn rhetoric about the value of badges. So he's a really good person to look for his blog and any of his research papers. And it was a great privilege to have him at the day. From my perspective, on the day, the audience was as fascinating as the presenters because it was a room full of people thinking about badge projects. So it was a veritable feast. Anyway, I'll shut up now because I hand it back to Joyce.
Yes.
Maurice,
Maurice.
can you hear me, Joyce?
Okay, great. Yeah, we can catch up on badge stuff later. And like we said, we will be putting all of those things into the Scoop It anyway, and we'll put it on the blog once we've got the blog going as well. So with that, I will zip up and leave it to you, Maurice.
Great. Okay, so I started the screen share, and so you should be able to see the badges front page of the screen. Can you nod, Joyce? Yep, that's good. Okay, we can see that there. Hi, I'm Maurice Moore. I'm I recently had a title change, now rather grandly called the Education Technology Solutions Architect, which basically means I'm an educational technologist. But for the last 3 years, I've been working as a software test analyst for a company called QualIT. And that's based in Wellington, New Zealand, and is involved in doing all sorts of testing for all sorts of people. We have about 200 staff involved in testing just about any type of application you can imagine, and we provide independent testing solutions as it actually provides there. But that's not why we're talking tonight, so I'll just go on and carry on with the discussion about how we got to badges and why we're currently using them. So from a company's perspective, there are a number of reasons that we started to look at badges. Or rather looking for a particular framework that we could use to cover all of these things. That is basically what our skills that our employees have, what they need, how can we use staff downtime. So there's a driver from a company perspective for us to look for a method of recognizing the skills of individual staff members. And of course, from the individual staff member, there had to be some reasons for doing it as well, otherwise they wouldn't do it. And so basically we were trying to answer a number of these sort of questions. So that led us on to thinking about how we could go about designing an aspirational development framework for staff that would meet both the needs of the management and also of the individual. And that took us to looking at badges, something that the Boy Scouts have been doing, and Girl Guides, of course, have been doing for over 100 years. And we ended up talking to some guy who's referred to as a industrial anthropologist, and he came up with these ideas that we might want to mimic the badging network. Now, in fact, I'll just say a little bit more about that. I seem to have missed a slide somewhere, but we started this process at around 2011, before any of us were aware that badges were beginning to emerge in the big wide world, other than in physical ones. And so this whole development went alongside, I suppose, in parallel with what was happening with Mozilla. As far as software test skills are concerned, you may not be aware, but there are numerous individual skill sets that every test analyst needs to do. It's quite a I won't say it's an immature industry, it's quite a mature industry in some ways, but in recognizing skills it's quite low. There are only 2 qualifications associated with being a test analyst, and those are very much theory based, and there's nothing that really recognizes individual skills. So we went about the process of writing down each of the individual skills that test analysts use, and we came up with 57 of them altogether. So we started that badge concept in 2011. It was a custom design and build using MS SharePoint. I wasn't involved at that time. 5 badge categories, 57 badges with up to 3 levels. And this is what it looked like. So this is the original system that sits in SharePoint. If ever you've used SharePoint, you'll know that it's quite a challenge at times to get things useful. It's fairly flat, but you'll see a number of the badges that we have down the sides here. The fact that they're grey indicates that they're placeholders. Underneath each of those, there's a set of things. Now, this is a slide, so I can't take you to the actual badges themselves, but we'll discuss that in a moment. We have a number of different types of badges. There are core testing badges, infrastructure, engineering performance, and engineering automation. This is one particular badge. The definitions that we had for those badges were quite light, but they explained a learning intent that was involved with the badge itself, in this case defect management. All of our badges have this particular shape, just vary in colour. The 3 levels of badges, which indicate levels of competence, or in this level that you're operating at effectively in that space. And once somebody's earned a badge, we have a dashboard that actually shows what level of badge that they've earned in each of the particular frameworks. Why did we need to go to version 2? Well, we felt there was a need to develop much clearer badge definitions because the criteria, the assessment criteria that we had initially were not terribly thorough. And certainly this was about the time that I came into the system, and I started looking at it and saying, well, from an educational standpoint, it was quite difficult to justify some of the decisions. So the decisions that were being made. There was also the problem of consistency. We have a number of people doing the assessments of badges, and as you know, with any assessment process, it's quite difficult to make sure that everyone is working to the same standard. So we wanted to beef up our particular framework. We also decided to make use of something called Sophia. Now, Sophia is the skills framework for the information age. It was developed in the UK in about 1999, last century. And it covers a number of different levels. Now, there are something like 93 different IT-related skills within Sophia, and there are 7 levels. Those levels run from level 1, which is basically you do as you're asked and you're working under supervision, up to level 7 where you're effectively the CIO. Why do we use Totara? Well, we had a look at a range of systems, and of course at the time the decision was made to go to SharePoint. I had raised the possibility of using either Mahara or Totara. At that time, I certainly wasn't aware that Totara included badges, so that would have been at the middle or early part of 2013. But that's where it went to. But what I was aware of, having used Totara before, was the organisation and positional hierarchies and appraisal functionality, which was creeping in. Of course, now it's also got badges, which has been ported from Moodle effectively. Now, Totara is a distribution of Moodle, so it sits on top of Moodle, and it's been designed to provide HR-related functions. So it allows you to actually map out individuals' organisations and positions within that organisation, who their managers are. And so rather than Moodle, which is predominantly aimed at delivering the same content to to a large cohort, Totara is much more designed for the learning and development space, where you're looking at individual development. We've decided to use 3 of those 7 levels of Sophia, going from level 3, which is basically a competent practitioner, up to level 6, where you're effectively mentoring people in the process. Now, we use different colours for the badges. So for the one that you can see on the left above the level 3 is a defect management badge. Defect management is available only 3 levels, only in 2 levels, not in all 4. So if we just look at some of our core badges, we can see the span of levels that they cover. Not surprisingly, the strategy is at the higher level, test execution, defect management, levels 3 to 4. So this is what this looks like now. It's a basic Totara system. We've done almost no modification whatsoever to the theme, using custom responsive theme in the system. Basically what you see here is the landing page, the home page that our individuals would actually get to. The graphic that you see in the center is there to show the process that they go through. So there's a getting started process, of course. They have to then choose a badge to do, one of the moment 11 that we have in the system, as we're currently building all the rest of them. They do a self-assessment to assess which level of badge they should go to, and I'll have a look at that in a minute. They create a badge plan. This is effectively the learning plan that exists in Totara. They have to then get their manager's approval. So rather than spend a lot of time developing their submission for their badge, we want to make sure that they are in fact going for the right one. They then go through a process, an appraisal process using the appraisal system that's currently inside Totara system. Now that appraisal process is not actually an assessment as such, it's a preparation process. So it allows the individuals to be challenged with a number of questions and then collect the evidence that they need to present at an interview where they'll be assessed for the badge. If they're successful at that, they get the badge awarded. So let's just step through that process. So in the first instance, they go into this area. It's actually part of the program's functionality within Totara, and it provides you with we basically group the badges together into a program, and then we use a self-assessment process that allows them to identify which level badge that they're going to go for. Once they've decided on that, they'll have a look at the actual badge itself, and this particular page is a Totara course, so all of the badges are course related. And we have a badge description about what the badge is about and how it fits in with the Sophia framework in 2 ways. In this case, someone who's working at level 5, there's a description there as to what's expected of them and what you can expect them to be doing. And the graphic on the right-hand side with the 4 little red dots on it indicates where that fits in and which of the skills, the Sophia skills that we're actually using. So in this case, we have the Sophia test skill, not surprisingly perhaps, and we have DLMG, METL, and RLMT. Now, METL is methods and tools, RLMT is relationship management, and I can't remember what DLMG is, but you can look it up on the Sophia site if you wish. It's sophia.org. The next thing they go through is an appraisal. Now, this is just the top level of an appraisal form. You probably, I don't know, there probably aren't many people who are used to using the appraisal. It's a fairly new feature within Totara. It was designed primarily for a corporate customer, and so I suspect it's not being used in academia much at the moment. It allows you to build a form which is staged, so you can work through the various stages and get the end result. So it's to collect the information. Once they've successfully completed the form, been through their interview, they get awarded a badge, and this is the typical badge that you'd find inside the Totara system. So it allows you to obviously upload a graphic. In this case, this is how the badge is awarded. So there's a name of the badge, the description, the course that it was associated with, and what the criteria were. Now, badges awarded inside Totara depend on, well, you can set up a number of rules-based criteria. Some of them are manual-based, so in this case you can see that it can be awarded by the system admin, but it also means that they have, the other option is that they can be awarded the badge if they successfully completed the appraisal for testing strategy 5, which means that effectively they get to complete the course. So once the individual has, I've tried to anonymise this guy, has the badge awarded on their profile, the individual's profile, they get to see the badges themselves, and if you click into those badges, basically you'll see this type of function. And then we have a dashboard. Now the dashboard is a custom build for us, and it shows each individual and which badges they have. At the moment there are just 10 badges shown there, but we have in fact, this is just an older screenshot, but we do have 15 different badges in there at the moment, and it's growing all the time. So what's been built? Well, it's a system that's got clearly defined assessment criteria. I believe it's repeatable and auditable assessment process where we have quite detailed assessment guidelines for people to work to. We will be sharing it with multiple clients over time, and it aligns with a published skills framework that's becoming quite important for us who are working in the IT industry, because certainly here in New Zealand, Sophia is now being used quite a lot in RFPs, requests for proposals by government organisations. And so having our badges at least enables us to at least have a start as to where we're actually working to. We recognise practical skills, that's what it's all about, and we have lots of resources for our assessors. So where are we at? Well, this is an example. There's something like 350 badges been awarded over the last year. Well, we have 130 full-time staff. And that's about the end of the slideshow. What I'll do now is just drop out of here for a moment, and then I'm happy to do a demonstration in a minute.
While you do that, Maurice, we do have some questions.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And Leo's been waiting a bit of a while, and his question is, are you using the competency framework functionality in Totara for Sophia?
No, we're not. I did look at using the competency functionality, and it's got some great things about it, but there are also some limitations. Although you can build a competency framework with in a hierarchical manner, so you can create a particular top level and then work down from that. When you start looking at it in things like appraisal forms, you pull it into an appraisal, you lose the hierarchy. The hierarchy still exists, of course, but you can't see it, and that makes it quite difficult. The other reason that we don't use the competency framework is that initially we thought that there would be a number of competencies that would fit across multiple badges. But as we started to look into it in detail, it became apparent that there were a lot of the individual skills were very context driven, and therefore a single, a skill in execution, which may look exactly the same as one that you're using in defect management, is actually quite subtly different. So there will be times, particularly for the soft skills badges, where we will be able to use competencies, but at the moment I think that we need to go one step further with that competency framework. Right, I'll leave it to you, Bron, to actually ask the questions. Is that all right?
Yeah. And there's another question. How many have you issued, and do earners make the badges travel? In other words, has someone taken the badge into a different backpack other than the workplace?
Right, we've issued something over 350 badges at a variety of levels. Yep, I showed you that graphic earlier on. I can show it to you again if you like. The uptake, this is not a compulsory thing. It's all done. Individuals get the opportunity to do the badges if they wish. Because we're a contracting company that go into a number of organisations, we frequently end up with people who come to the end of a contract and then have, say, 2 or 3 weeks between contracts. We refer to that as bench time. During the bench time, people are encouraged to do their badges, and that's what typically happens. So that's going to cover the number, and whether or not we've made them open. We have tested it with the Mozilla Backpack and made sure that, I mean, not that there was much to test, to be honest. It's standard functionality within Totara and Moodle, and it works fine, but at the moment we haven't opened it up. That's just been a commercial decision, or a private decision, I suppose, of the company, that they to do that once we feel that we've matured with the product.
And just one further question. What has been the reaction from the learners to badges?
Right, mixed. What a surprise! It's we get the standard bell curve. We get those that want to leap into it. The one that I showed you, that particular guy just can't get enough of badges, and so wants to go in there and do all sorts. We get others who don't feel that they don't, or they just feel uncertain about their own skills. And so we have capability managers for each of our groups of staff, and part of their role is to ease their way into it. The other thing is, of course, in the design of the system, we try and make the experience of going into using the badges non-intimidating, and or developing their applications non-intimidating, and trying to show them the benefits. One thing we haven't done is linked it to roles or remuneration, and so currently all of these are done voluntarily for no obvious benefit for the individual.
And
that
Maurice,
is in terms of pay and money. Sorry, pay and jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so just related to that then, in terms of the people who've been working with your staff, like how much communication have you done about the fact that these are open badges and that they could travel with people when they would go to another organization, or have you just presented it as an internal system without doing too much of communication around the bigger story?
Yeah. Well. Okay, in the initial system, of course, being built in SharePoint, was very much a closed system and not capable of being used externally. And that's where we were at for the first year. And so from that point of view, it was never part of a conversation right up front. Since we started using Totara, the opportunity to actually share badges and the motivation that we feel that will bring to people is one that what we're quite keen to do, and so it's certainly seen as there's a lot of conversation internally with the senior management about opening the system up, but as I said, they just feel that they want it to bed down before we open it up. Although in some ways I can see that's an argument that once the badge has been awarded, it's been awarded, and that's it. I think that's another thing is we're starting to think about the recertification pathways. A lot of these skills, particularly if you think of something like SQL, the ability to do SQL programming, that's a skill that if you don't use it for a couple of years, you'll lose it. And so we're starting to look at using badges that expire after a fixed period of time and then doing a recertification process.
And something else that we've talked about a lot here, and that's also related to that, is if you do the expiry, then it would make sense to start to add like years to your badges, so people know when you got your badge. And that brings me to the visual design. How much haggling did you have to do, and who is involved in the visual design of your badges?
Well, we're a commercial organisation. Surprise, surprise, we went to a commercial company. We've used a design company for many years. The company's been running for 10 years now. And so the obvious thing was to actually go to that company, and they came up with this particular design. It has been supplemented. Initially there were only 3 levels of badges, now we've got 4, and so we've introduced a red one. But there was quite a lot of discussion about what colour it should be. Over to you.
Yes. Well, that sounds like you got off lightly compared to what some of the other people with badge projects have gone through in terms of how many people wanted input on the badges and how vehemently the
Yeah,
design was discussed.
Because this was very much a centrally driven thing, one of our owners, it was his baby, so he made the decisions.
Mm. And one of the questions that I always come back to with these kinds of things, and I'll just keep asking questions until somebody else who's watching jumps in with their questions. But one of the things, and one of the things that I wonder whether you've discussed or about how you would treat it is what would you do about, so I always talk about the whole idea of if you're going to do badges out, then you need to do badges in, and what kind of discussions have you had inside the organization about how you would treat a badge if somebody came to you with a badge that they'd earned somewhere else?
I don't think we've really thought about that at the moment, given that within our industry there is nobody else doing this thing that we're about.
You're pioneers.
So at the moment we haven't really thought about that. I guess in some ways what we're doing already is a level of RPL. So all our badges are evidence-based. So our candidates have to be able to show evidence that they have performed these particular skills on multiple occasions. That's all laid out within the assessment criteria and the badge descriptions. And so effectively what we're doing is going through a process of RPL. We're looking at the evidence that they provide and seeing how well they match our assessment criteria, and based on that they get or don't get the badge. So from that point of view, in terms of bringing badges in, we would go through the same process, I suspect. You know, we would look at the experience that person's actually bringing to us in forms of evidence, and then assessing them based on that.
So, yeah, that's interesting too, because one of the discussions last week was about the ethical implications of the fact that a badge always has baked into it a link back to where the evidence sits, and how ethical it is for students to always have to publicly share where the evidence is. And of course, there are ways that you could be linking back to a closed system, but in your case, it might actually benefit someone. It might have real professional benefits to maintain a public and open portfolio where people can see the evidence of the work that you've done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a couple of things there. When you're talking about the evidence associated with the badge, typically the evidence that is used to do the assessment is not exposed anywhere. You know, it's within the LMS, and nobody else gets to see it other than those people who have the rights to do so. When the badge gets published, of course, it's got evidence that's associated with it. There is nothing in there that says that, or that shows that a particular person was working on a project doing a particular set of tasks. That information is not open within the Moodle or the Totara badges unless it's actually baked straight into the badge itself, which you wouldn't do because they're generic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that's where people were talking about last week, where it was actually kind of where it was directly linking out to someone's public evidence out on the web. But obviously, when it has been created and generated through the system, it's always going to link back to an artifact that sits inside the system.
Yeah.
Leo has
that was one of the interesting things in badge list, wasn't it? Is to actually in badge list they were effectively, or you had the capability of exposing the actual evidence in a portfolio type environment, similar to Mahara, that other people would be able to see. That's not the case in the way that we're using badges in the system.
Yeah, all right.
We have another question from Leo. And Leo asks, so who's doing the assessment? Is that managers?
Yeah, it's actually performed by managers when they are generic skills, or subject specialists when they're specialist skills.
Okay. And a further question then from Grant. Does the badge actually constitute a form of reference if people were wanting to take it either within the company or elsewhere?
Not currently, or not overtly, put it that way. So within the company, everyone gets to see which badges or each badge that the individual people have, and so that certainly is likely to, well, help identify a mentor if you know that you wish to work towards a particular skill set, and there's someone there who obviously has that skill set, then you can work with them. But there's no direct sharing of that information in terms of a reference externally.
And Leo comes back with another question. Would you think if some of your staff might display their badges, say on LinkedIn or somewhere like that?
Well, yep, they could do. At the moment, there's certainly nothing to stop them from downloading their badges and displaying them. To my knowledge, nobody has done that yet, and I hadn't really thought about it. So thanks, Leo. We'll think about that.
That's all the questions we have for now. I think we can move on to the demonstration.
All right, I best make sure I can get it working.
Always a good sign when there's lots of questions, Maurice. Always a good sign.
Thanks, Bron. Yeah, let's just see if I can find the. Come on. Just bear with me. I'm just looking for the screen that I've got the system up on.
While Maurice is doing that, I just remind people you can come help take notes while you're watching. It's a lot of my purple on the screen on the moped, and I certainly would love if you have a different take on things, or if you want to scan the notes and see if I've left anything important out, that would be great.
Okay, I'm nearly there. I just lost moped. I've just lost the Hangout now.
No, that's right. We can still see you.
Oh, great. There we go.
And just a reminder to people who are listening, the next call will be Wednesday the 3rd of December, and we are still looking for a case study. So if you want to put your hand up, and remember, it doesn't need to be a fully formed case. It can be just a project that you're thinking about, or that is still in the very early stages where you want to get people's feedback on it. That's perfectly fine. So, so we'd be very glad to just have like a community brainstorm about someone's project. If you've got a project, or if you know someone who's got a project but they haven't heard about OBANZ, or they've been shy, then please do put them forward under the speaker and topic suggestions. Okay, so Maurice, back to you.
Yes. Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. Okay, this is the badges at QualIT. It's our live site. As you see, it's a fairly standard Totara layout with just some custom graphics. So we land on the home page. When an individual's looking for particular badges, we've done a few language changes within the system itself. We go to this particular page where they can look for these badges. Now, I'm not going to be able to show you this directly, or I'll have to do it separately, because these are the self-assessments. They pop up into a separate window, so you won't see those. We tried that earlier on. Basically, you can go down through these badges and see which ones that they're thinking of doing. So there's basic, simple description of the badge themselves, and then there's a self-assessment. Just in the process of changing some graphics associated with that, so that we've got these little graphic that sort of fits the build. I'll show you the self-assessment shortly, but it will mean going to a different window. I suppose I can do that now, just to hold on a second. Right, sorry. Right. So this is a self-assessment for the test risk management badge. It's actually built using a little tool called Twine, which is a story writing tool that's been developed. It's an open source package, and you can find it at twinery.org. That's TINERY.org. It's quite a neat little thing which allows you to build a single HTML page. In this case, it's a branching page. So when you actually go into the system itself and just a minute, I'm not on the right one. Press the begin button. What we're aiming at doing here is providing people with guidance as to what level that they're currently working at within this particular badge. So they're presented with a number of questions. It's quite a simple process that they need to say, right, okay, I had responsible for managing test risk at a project or program level. Now the wording that's used here is familiar with obviously people that are working in this particular industry. They're then asked another case, it's around complexity, and these are all things that exist within the SOPHIA framework. So the levels of responsibility, those 1 to 7 levels that you get within SOPHIA, are all about levels of responsibility. And the responsibility is down to complexity, authority, and one other that I can't think of right at the minute. So this particular candidate goes through, has got more experience in running more complex projects. They have experience in doing a whole range of things, and then that yes, they can provide the particular level of evidence that they require, and at the end they just get a recommendation. So it's a fairly simple process that allows just to overcome some of the original problems that we had, that people didn't know which level to go for, which level that their experience aligned with. We got two extremes of behaviour. Some people who thought that they were clearly at CIO level already, even though they'd only been working in the field for a week or two, and others who had been working in the field for 10 years, extremely competent, but rated their skills a lot lower. So this is just one way of sort of levelling it out before they actually start their work. So I'll just try and go back to the other system. Come on, Mr. Hangout. Right, so they choose the badge. They can then go into a badge catalogue. We have our badge catalogue split in this case into three areas. Getting started badges, which I suspect won't surprise you to know, are all about orientation and what the whole process is doing. So they're simple courses which are not assessed in any way. We have qualifications badges. Now these are associated with the theoretical qualifications that are typically taken as baselining for people working in the test industry. It's called the ISTQB. It's the International Software Testing Qualifications Board. And there is one for Australia and New Zealand called the ANZTB, but they basically just piggyback off ISTQB. The core badges, there are 26 of these at the moment, and each of these represents a course that we have within the system itself. So if we go down to Test Planning 5, you'll see that's the picture that I showed you earlier. We start off with our SOPHIA description, followed by a description of the badge itself, what we're expecting to see people, then an explanation of what people need to do in order to be able to achieve the badge. The badge itself is designed within the system, but because I'm logged in as a user, they can't actually see the design framework. I can show you that later if you wish. The the appraisals, now this is a live system, so let's just go in. Now I know this particular person hasn't done too much, but he's started. So this is one of the appraisals. He hasn't started. Let's see. I suspect he would have started here. No, he hasn't. I won't go in because I'm logged in. Oh, actually, it won't make any difference because I'm... Basically, the way that the appraisal is broken down is that one of those stages, which is the application stage, involves an introduction, which is an explanation, and then there's a requirement for them to actually respond. So they have to identify the projects that they're going to use to their in evidence. Now, I'm not going to go any further on with this because it'll effectively step this person through, but basically they'll go through each of these steps, and once they've completed that, the next stage will open up. And basically there's a review stage with their manager, and they check to see that if they've got all the information they need and they're ready for interview. The manager considers they're ready for interview, they go on to the interview stage. Our interviews are conducted by, well, if it's a level 3, it's typically just one person, often their manager. For levels 4, 5 and 6, there are always 2 people. One of those is always a subject matter expert in the field. We use plans, so I guess we can just show you, in this case, the badge plans involve identifying what badges you're actually going to go for. In this case, you can see that there he's identified 4 particular badges that he wants to go for. And there are some reports that all individuals can see, in this case the badges issued report, and that's a whole of organisation. Now we do use this system for more than one organisation, and we use categories and audiences in the system to separate the views that individuals get. So in this case you can actually identify individuals and see what badges that they have. So that's the live system. If the individual goes to the profile, so I tried, well, you can see who it is, and unfortunately, of course, that'll go live, but never mind, I'm sure Lee won't mind. So there's an indication that this particular person is quite keen on getting his badges and is working up the levels. So we'll leave it at that, and happy to answer any other questions.
There aren't any more questions in the chat right now, but hopefully someone will jump in and...
yeah, in the meantime, I just want to say I'm really impressed with that idea of people declaring which badge they're going for. There was a really interesting blog post a few weeks ago. Well, there's actually a discussion, it was in October, between several badge bloggers, and the idea was that somebody had said, what if students, instead of declaring a major, a student would declare a mission that they're going to go on. So basically saying, I'm going to learn this, or I'm going to achieve this. And I feel like that idea that you've got there of somebody saying, here's my plan, I'm going to go for this, and then I'm going to go for that. I think that's a really powerful one, and also in terms of just learner-directed learning, you know, where people just set out their own learning pathways rather than it having to be. How did someone describe it last week at the Badges Day? They said it was a forced march. It's like it can't feel like that, a forced march. So yeah. I love that plan idea. So is that integral to Totara, or is that something that you guys added?
No. Okay, the learning plans, as they're referred to in Totara, I mean, we've renamed them badge plans, but learning plans are inherent or inbuilt inside Totara and are fundamental. There's quite a lot you can do with badge plans. Effectively, once a plan is... So in our case, what we're doing is having an individual identifying which badges they wish to go for. It has there's a set of workflows associated with those badge plans, and we're using one where the manager has to approve that plan because we don't want people working towards a badge that they're not ready to get. So there is a level of control over that. The workflow is totally customizable, so if you want the individuals to make the decision themselves, then they can approve. Effectively, they just choose, and it's automatically approved. Now, from that point on, the courses, badges in our case, but courses in the case of a normal LMS type function that they've identified, they will be automatically enrolled into those courses. And so from that point onwards, they'll be working towards achieving an outcome. They're also able to set priorities for those courses, set time frames in which they'll do those courses. So you can see that you shifted away from the whole principle of it being everybody going through a course at the same time. People can go through them in any order that they wish.
Yeah, and Natalie has just asked the exact same question that I was about to jump on, so thanks for that, Natalie, which is, why hasn't this made it back upstream to Moodle? You know, these learning plans that then enroll you in the right course so that you could do it. Or, you know, how can we set up Moodle to allow badge plans?
Yeah, I think talk to Richard Wiles, I suppose, and Martin Dougal.
Christina's listening, isn't he?
Sorry?
Sorry?
What did you say?
Oh, I was just saying that I thought we had some people from Catalyst in the room. So.
Yeah. Maharana.
Yes.
My question.
Richard Wiles, it's not Catalyst, of course. He is Totara LMS.
No. Yes.
My question, Maurice, would be, what have been the big takeaways from the corporate side of things in terms of this badging?
The takeaways. Well,
what have been the greatest benefit, you think, to the organisation?
Yeah. Okay. It's early days. I mean, I say it's early days. It's been 2 years, or almost 2 years, 18 months or so that we've actually been running these things. We've learnt an awful lot about the motivation of people to do different things, and how some people really do appreciate being able to demonstrate that they've got a particular set of skills. From an individual's perspective, being able to benchmark their own skill levels has been great for them, and so you know, it's a real sense of affirmation, and that they've got those skills and they've got some proof of it. So those things, I think, was also realization that actually this isn't being done a lot, certainly openly. I know from that conversation last week at the conference, I did join it right at the end, that the lady from Telstra was saying that a lot of the major organisations, like the accountants or whatever, tended to keep all of these things within their own framework. So I don't know. I think we'll see more of this happening in future.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, certainly one place where it's could be really powerful in terms of just knowing which skills you've got in your organization. And in fact, that seems like it was one of the drivers for your organization to actually roll it out. But I think that's something that many organizations struggle with, certainly in the recruitment process as well, about, well, what do we actually need, you know, because, for instance, even if you just look at academia or even corporate training, you know, an education technologist comes in many different sizes. You know, some of us are really good at podcasting, others have specializations in gamification. Which one did you need? You know, not just which generic education technologist you need. So I think that's really powerful and can give a lot of insights to an organization about what it has and what it needs.
Yeah, Maurice, I'd be really... Sorry. I was just going to say, I'd be really interested to know what your answer would be, having seen this in operation for 2 years, and it sounds really healthy and strong. What would be your answer to people who say our badges are just trinkets?
Well, of course they can be. You know, it's all about the same thing that was said last week and has been said many times. It's all about the level of evidence or the trust that you have in the issuing organisation, and how transparent it is that the process that's used to deliver it. So Yes, initially, you know, there was a lot of giggles around when it was first introduced, and people were like, you know, we were all imagining walking around with sashes and our badges on, and I think most of us didn't get it, you know, but gradually people began to realise that it's got some value.
Well, I hope you know how cutting edge what you've just described in this hour is, and how juicy it has been to us to hear this, because you know, it's just wonderful.
Well,
Yeah.
can I have a badge for that?
Yeah, yeah. We're working on the OBANZ badges. There'll definitely be a badge.
Right.
Oh gosh, you know what? I've been so fascinated listening to this and thinking about all of the, you know, major considerations and just how thought out this project is, that I've just totally lost track of time, and it's 8 o'clock already. And that's, you know, not so bad for me, because I actually get to see you 2 days from now and ask you questions then. So, but for everybody else in the OBANZ community, there's been lots of note taking. If you're willing to share your slides on SlideShare somewhere, then we can still add those to the QualIT and also to the notes. That will be much appreciated, I'm sure. And you're getting a lot of kudos and a lot of thanks in the chat as well. And yeah, it's just been fascinating, and I think an example, you know, in like just a stellar example of badging in an organization. I think it's, yeah. Like, this isn't just playing around. This is, we're just going to implement it, and you know, we've really thought it through. So thank you, Maurice. Great stuff.
And once again, New Zealand is leading the world.
Of course.
Of course. So go Kiwis. Thank you very much. Thanks, Maurice. And thanks, everyone, for listening in. And as you know, the recording will be available as soon as we stop the broadcast on YouTube. And we do get a lot of views on those later on. So so your story will travel even further, Maurice. So thanks, everyone. Thank you, Mark, as well, for being facilitating in the OBANZ. You were a bit quiet in here, but there's lots of contributions there. And we'll be looking for case studies for the 3rd of December. So do put them in there. I know Natalie's already put up her hand, so but we're always welcoming more. So thanks, everyone, and do stay in touch via Twitter and our Facebook page, and see you all on the 3rd. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Maurice. Thanks, Bron. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Maurice. That was fantastic.